But basically what we're gonna do is just go over, okay, so we're gonna kind of look at like a prog chart and just kind of see like what the weather is doing right now, kind of like what changes are going to be happening in the next like couple of days. Just kind of do like a weather briefing, I guess you can say. And then we'll just take a look at like maybe like 5 meters, like just reading them. I mean, you guys killed it yesterday, so I'm not really worried about that. But we'll just like look at 5 meters, see what's going on at some airports, and then we'll learn about PIREPS, which really is not going to take long at all. It's super easy stuff. And then winds aloft, when I show you the winds aloft, is super easy too. That really is not going to take long at all. We'll do the ISA, just kind of figuring out how to calculate standard, what your standard temperature is going to be at a certain altitude, and then basically like what the difference is, because that will go a long way like when it comes to those performance charts that you guys will learn in person, or I think it's like the last week of the class before you go in person that you'll like take a look at all that stuff. So we'll do that, go through that quick little week 4 study guide. This way you guys can just knock it completely out. Everything will be good on it, and then call it a night. So very, very easy night. It's not going to take us long at all. I can assure you that. So that's a good thing, I guess. All right, let's hop to it then. So let's see, I'm going to share this screen. All right, and I think hopefully it pulls up. Maybe not. Okay, there we go. So we're on our lovely aviationweather.gov. Can everybody see this okay? Thumbs up. Awesome. Cool. So there's obviously a lot going on right here that we can see, right? We have some different kinds of fronts happening. We have some different types of pressures happening. So does anybody kind of want to take a shot at just giving us just like a brief snapshot of like what exactly you see on this chart? Anybody? Do you guys see some high pressure systems going on? Brian?
Yeah, so it looks like primarily in the west, it's high pressure, and then there's I guess up around North Dakota, I don't know, some kind of front coming down. I don't know if it's like an Alberta clipper or something like that, but it's got some precipitation there. But then there's a stalled out front going from Texas up to Virginia, and so there's a lot of rain out ahead of it in the south. And then looks like some lake effect snows up in New York and Ohio. That's primarily what I'm seeing.
Yeah. So when we see, because there's I guess I can zoom in too. When we see we have some stationary fronts over here that leads into that cold front as well. We have a cold front over on this side. We have that high pressure system. We have low pressure and those areas of low pressure. So the troughs happening right now. We have low pressure down here as well, high pressure down in Florida. So what kind of weather like may some of these places see? Like what kind of weather may like this area see? Does anybody know? I'll zoom in a little bit. Do you guys think we're going to be seeing some bad weather or some good weather over here? where this like stationary front and this cold front's going to be. Betty says snow. Yeah, definitely. I think over here is a little bit of snow. um, but yeah, so we're basically just going to see kind of like not so good weather conditions over here, right? So we have that low pressure, we have that cold front happening. So we're going to have some precipitation. We're going to have some unstable air, of course, as well. You're going to have maybe good visibility though, right? Because like with the low pressure system, you have good visibility where the high pressure system is where you have bad visibility. So let's see. And then if we kind of skip through a little bit, right, into tomorrow a little bit, we can kind of see that we go back a little bit here. That stationary front is going to be is going to be coming down more. So it's going to be moving south. That area of long pressure or the area of low pressure is also going to be moving. So things seem to be kind of moving along. And then if we can just continue going on, you can kind of just see that the weather is starting to, those fronts, right, are just starting to get pushed down south. So Florida may not be experiencing some great weather. We have some high pressures over here. Let's see. We have an included front right over here. I think that's in like the Maine area, if I'm not mistaken. And then now it looks like at 1800 on tomorrow, it looks like we have more high pressure moving into like the Central America area. Again, we have that cold front coming in with Florida. And then we have a little bit of that low pressure systems happening as well. So pretty much the weather is going to be kind of bad overall for like most of the United States. Or I guess some of the United States, and then some areas you're going to have a little bit better weather conditions. But yeah, if you just keep on moving forward with this, you can kind of see like what's happening on Friday now. So we just have more of low pressures, high pressures happening. It looks like those stationary fronts moved out. We have a warm front coming over here. We have, again, those troughs over here as well. So you can kind of expect to see just like a mix with like your weather conditions. And then if you just keep on going down, then on Saturday, it looks like we have another cold front coming from the north down to the south. We have more of an included front happening over here off the states and in Canada, it looks like. And then we have another cold front that looks like it's probably going to be moving in over in like in the Washington, California area. So you can kind of see with these prog charts, it gives you a couple of days worth at a time of like what's going to be happening here with the weather. So every single time you go in to like on the job or when you go to the when you get a job, right, and you go in, that's the first thing you're going to look at is like, okay, what is the weather doing all over right now? Like, you know, if you're going to be working for, let's just say SkyWest, right, what is the weather going to be doing right now? What am I looking for? Like, okay, well, maybe there's a lot of low pressure systems out there, or maybe there's a lot of cold fronts happening. So I had to kind of keep in mind, like for my fuel planning, maybe there's going to be some delays that are going to be impacted. So you're kind of just thinking of those things, like thinking ahead. And then of course, like when you get on the job itself and you're taking over like somebody's flights, like they're going to have pass times to give you. So like at Spirit, if I came in at, let's just say 9 a.m., right? And then somebody was eventually leaving at that time, then I would take over whatever they had planned for. I would take their desk, but they would give me a pass down as far as like what was planned, what they have currently flying right now, what to expect, if they gave anybody like additional fuel, why they gave those people additional fuel. So they kind of give you like a more of a heads up when you're taken over flights from somebody. But awesome. So then what we're going to do. That's not what I wanted. What we're going to do is we're just going to pull up just a couple, just to kind of go through them again. Like I said, you guys did pretty good yesterday with like the meters and the taps, but we're just kind of gonna buzz through it a little bit. Okay, so who wants to read this one in Nashville or tell me what's happening in Nashville? Brett?
Yeah, so in Nashville, looks like they got Windsor 2-0 at 4 and 8 statute miles visibility broken at 1300, overcast 2200, temperature of 9, dew point of 8, and altimeter setting of 3007.
Perfect. Let's see. And you can kind of see because where is it right here? You can kind of just see there's some precipitation happening, and then you have that stationary front right above it. That's kind of pushing that bad weather, or that's lingering that weather over there. And then you have that low pressure. So of course they are going to be experiencing some not so great weather. And then who wants to give Charleston a shot?
I can do that.
Anybody. Perfect.
Charleston then on the 3rd, 2254 Zulu, light and variable winds, quarter statute mile viz, snow, fog, overcast at 400, zeros, all donuts on the temperature and dew point, and altimeter 3001.
Yeah, perfect. The altimeter 30 or 3011.
11.
Perfect. Awesome. So then would you guys need an alternate on this one?
Yep.
Perfect. And then let's go over to where maybe some better weather is. Let's see. All right, Salt Lake City, right? So who wants to say what Salt Lake City is doing? What kind of weather are they experiencing? And then same thing as yesterday, just because I'm looking on my iPad. So if you want to raise your hand, I kind of see in the corner here. Otherwise, you can just take yourself off mute and then just take a shot at it.
I'll do this one. The weather looks pretty good. Winds are reporting 360 at 7 knots, 10 statute mile visibility. Few clouds at 9,000, broken at 25,000. Temperatures 11, dew points -3, altimeter 3049.
Perfect. Awesome. And you can kind of see that they have a high pressure system over here too, right above it, or a little bit above it. And then that low pressure, or the areas of long pressure coming over here. So perfect. Which makes sense as to why Salt Lake City is experiencing that type of weather versus somebody like over in Nashville here. Awesome. So we are going to move on to PIREPs. I have a handy dandy little sheet over here that I will make sure to include. It basically is going to break down the PIREP, and we're going to read a couple of them. So with PIREPs, does anybody know what that stands for? Say that again.
Pilot report.
Perfect. Yeah. You and Betty both said pilot report. Awesome. Do you guys know how long they're valid for typically? You can do thumbs down too. By the way, I see that. If you don't know, just do maybe a thumbs down so I can see. But so pilots reports. Oh my goodness, sorry, I cannot talk right now. They're usually valid for about 5 minutes or so, right? Because it's real weather where pilots are flying through that area. So we're typically not going to use it when we're doing like dispatching, like planning, like what the weather is going to be looking like. But it's just good information to kind of know. especially like, let's just say you're tracking one of your aircrafts and you kind of see that a pilot came by or came out, and you're like, okay, wait, my flight is going to be traveling in that area maybe in the next like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Maybe this is good information just to pass over to them, right? Especially if they're reporting like really bad turbulence, then you would always want to make sure you're passing that information over to the pilots because they can always deviate around it if needed. But we're not really going to be using them when it comes to like our decision making as far as like, oh, like what exactly is the weather doing at this airport. So there's two different reports you're going to see. So there's going to be an urgent and a routine. An urgent one is going to be UUA, and then your routine is just going to be UA. So basically on here, it's just telling us like that there's something for an urgent report to come out. It means like something's like severe is going on, like extreme, right? So like clear air turbulence, maybe some icing, some hail, volcanic ash. We have some low level wind shear happening, tornadoes, funnel clouds, things like that. That's like needs to be, oh my goodness, like watch out for this. Like this is really like going to impact your flight right now. Versus like a routine, maybe it's just like, hey, we were flying and we broke out of the clouds at 1,000 feet. So that's kind of more of like routine, something that's not really too severe. Maybe like they experienced some type of turbulence, maybe during like descent, things like that. But that would be more of like a routine versus an urgent one. So the way they're broken up into, kind of just to backtrack it a little bit, if you look up here, it's broken up into the airport, so like the nearby station that this pilot report is going to be coming from, and then what type of report, and then where where that pilot is right now in relation to that airport. So they can be over like a VOR, they can be over some type of nav aid, and then the time that they noted this, the flight level that they were at, what type of aircraft it is, because obviously, like in this case, they are reporting from a type 172, a Cessna 172, right? That's not going to probably impact our flight in the CRJ. So if they're saying like, oh, I experienced some light to moderate turbulence, well, you're in a 172, you know, we're kind of in a CRJ. So it's going to be a little bit different, right? And then they're going to talk about the sky conditions, if there's any, like what the visibility is doing, the temperature, what the winds are doing, and then of course like turbulence, if they experienced any icing, things like that. So when we scroll down, again, the OV is going to be the location. So right here it says that the use of a nav aid or an airport using the 3 or 4 digit letter location identifier, and then the position over the site at some location. It can be relative to the site or it can just be along a route. So they kind of list some good examples in here. The time is always going to be in UTC time. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then that FL is your flight level. So where they experience that from. If they don't tell you, they'll just put unknown, so UNKN. So you may see that as like far as like flight level unknown versus flight level 9,500. And then the different type of aircraft that's reporting something, what the sky is doing. So it can describe cloud amount, the height of the cloud bases, and the height of the cloud tops. And again, if something is unknown, they'll put that in there. Visibility, if they report like any bad visibility, they'll put that in there as well. And then that temperature is always going to be Celsius, of course, so just keep that in mind. And then the wind, what it's doing, if they're experiencing like any low level wind shear type of things. The turbulence, so turbulence they can use from either like light, moderate, choppy, severe. So those are some things that you might see. And then the icing, So some of them, like right now, we should be able to find some good pyreps that will show like if there's any icing that somebody's flying into. So like light, moderate, severe, they'll put rime, clear, mixed ice. So the type of ice that they're experiencing, and then any remarks for the section over here. So kind of easy. Again, I'll link this actually in the chat really quick because I think it's really important and we can follow along. Okay. So everybody should have gotten this in the messages. If you guys want to just like click on it, pull it up because we're going to be using it when we're reading some pyreps. But so far, does this kind of make a little sense as far as like how they're breaking things down and then what's routine and then versus like what is going to be like an urgent report? Perfect. So if we look at the example that they're going to give us, right, they're saying that over in Oklahoma, it's a routine pilot report. It's going to be over the Oklahoma VOR on the 090 radial, 64 nautical miles from that. The time is going to be 1522. The flight level is going to be 8,000. The type is a 172. The sky conditions, they're telling us that there's a scattered, that it's scattered at 9,000 and that the top is unknown. I don't know why they put a top there, but the top is unknown. And then the weather was doing, there's a flight visibility of 5 statute miles, haze that's associated with it. The temperature is going to be -4. And then the wind is going to be the 245 at 40 knots. And then they're experiencing some light turbulence. So, and over here, it kind of breaks it down in English for us. So they're over the Oklahoma City VOR, 1522, flight levels at 8,000. MSL, of course, and then the pi level of 172 reported a scattered cloud layer with bases at 9,000. The top is unknown. Flight visibility is at 5 statute miles. -4 degrees Celsius, and then the wind is coming from 245 at 40 knots. Light turbulence, and the airplane is in clear skies. So that's kind of them breaking it down in English of how they're reading this. Everybody following so far? Perfect. So if you guys go on to the aviationweather.gov website, right? At the top here on products, you can scroll down and go to PIREP data. So it's going to look like this, right? When you first pull it up. You can put in any airport that you want to kind of see if there's any PIREPs that have been issued or have been published on here around that area. So in this case, I'm just going to do a well-known one, Orlando. And it looks like we have 2 of them that came out. Does anybody want to potentially give the first line a shot here, Jacksonville a shot? Or tell me if this is an urgent one that this pilot reported or if it's a routine one. Perfect. It is routine. And then what does this guy over here mean? The FL015. What does that mean?
Flight level.
Perfect. And the flight level that they're at right now, that they're saying that this is like what I'm experiencing, what is that flight level?
What they're experiencing.
Well, like what flight level are they at? Let me clarify that.
1,500.
Perfect. And then let's see the TM over here, 0030. What does that mean?
Time.
Perfect.
Zulu.
And is this, what kind of plane is this right now? Or is it a plane?
Airbus 321.
The second one is, but the first line. The
Is a
one in
hello. I
Jacksonville.
don't know what is that. Helicopter maybe.
I think it's helicopter, yeah. I don't know why they didn't do like an I though. HELI, but perfect. So who wants to give this like a read? Who wants to actually read it from start to the end? So where it says Jacksonville to Sky Clear. Does anybody want to give that a shot? Is it, I know I'm gonna mispronounce it. Is it Seawar?
You are.
Okay, perfect. Go for it. Or let's have a
it's
question.
It's a routine pilot. 7 nautical miles on the 225 radio over GNV VOR.
Yeah.
Reported on the 0030 Zulu. Flight level 1500. Type of aircraft helicopter. Skies clear.
Perfect. Awesome. Good job. Yeah, exactly. And then let's see. So then this bottom one over here, who wants to give that a shot? The Fort Lauderdale one. Or who wants to tell me what the winds are doing on this one? Trevor.
I can read it.
Yeah, go for it.
So this one is a routine PIREP over the FLL VOR, over the 270 radial, 11 miles out. Time was 0012 Zulu, flight level 03, it's 3,500 feet. Airbus A321, sky condition was scattered at 6,000. They're considering that clear weather, and winds were 130 at 8 knots. Is that what that is?
Awesome. 13, yeah, they're coming from the 130 at 8 knots. But yes, the winds. Awesome. Yeah, you guys did a good job. So obviously you can tell that really nothing was kind of reported within the last hour and a half over by Orlando. So maybe let's just try doing, for the sake of it, Chicago. I'm sure Chicago, oh, yep, is having a lot of a lot of information. All right, let's see what Chicago, let's see what they reported on some of these guys. Okay. This second one right here, the second Chicago one, does anybody want to tell me what the clouds are doing? So it'd be that line. Oh, maybe not all of that, but it would be this line. Does anybody want to tell me what the clouds are doing? What they're reporting for these clouds? Or does anybody want to just try reading it?
Looks like overcast at 3,100 with the tops at 4,000, and it was probably the report was made during descent into runway 27 center.
Perfect. Yeah, awesome. So some of these remarks, right, especially if they're experiencing like turbulence, and if they're experiencing like maybe those cloud layers, they may put down like in the remarks section, which is the RM, like where this was in relation to what they were doing. So in this case, like, oh, the pilots are going down to descent for runway 27 center. Yeah, 27 center. And they're reporting that these are what the clouds right now are doing. So that's kind of good information as well to kind of take note of, because especially when it comes to like maybe those clouds are a little bit lower too. It may kind of determine like, okay, are the pilots going to like be at minimums if they're shooting an approach? May they, if they go to the minimums, they may divert if they can't get to like if they can't land, they may have to go to another airport. So like, oh, did we make sure that they had enough fuel on board during this time as well? So again, it's something that like is not going to affect your decision making when it comes to like legally dispatching the aircraft, as far as like making sure it's legal to go and everything like that. But this is good information to know. And in this case, like if they were, if you had a flight going to Chicago, I would obviously let them know like, hey, this came out. Just want to give you a heads up that this is what somebody reported during descent to runway 27 center. This way they can kind of be on the lookout for it, right? So you want to make sure that if you see a PIREP, especially that is something that can be helpful to the pilots, you make sure you pass that information over to them. So let's see. Okay, what about this last one right here? The MW or the MDW. I gotta drink some water. Who wants to read that one? Or who wants to tell me what they're experiencing? Just like a brief overview of what they're experiencing.
I can try.
Anybody? Sure, go for it.
Looks like it was over MDW at 23:30. Looks like it was during climb for the flight level. And then the aircraft type was a 737, and they were reporting cloud layer at 2,700 feet with tops at 4,400.
Perfect. Exactly. Awesome. Yes, exactly. And then, all right. Let's see. What else can we do? What about this guy, SBN? Whoever wants to read it can read it. Otherwise, just kind of tell me what you are seeing right here. Like just a brief overview of like what you're reading. Because I think you guys can understand a little bit about what you're reading from what it seems like. You guys are doing really good with this. So perfect. Betty said there's some light rime that's being reported. Exactly. What else is being reported here? What are the clouds doing? If you also want to put in the messages as well, feel free to do that. Just remember, participation is key when it comes to being able to reinforce like what we're actually doing in this class. So again, if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself, answering something, but you kind of want to give it a try, you can always put it in the messages as well. And I just lost it. So we know that there's some. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's overcast, ceiling at 3,000. I guess that's the base, and the top of the cloud was at 4,700 feet.
Perfect. Absolutely. And then what's the temperature doing over here? Is it reporting a temperature? And if it is, what's the temperature at? Perfect. -5. Exactly. Awesome. Let's see. And then okay, let's see. The CMI one, so this line. What kind of turbulence are they experiencing right now?
Constant moderate chop. Looks like during the climb.
Say that one more time.
Constant moderate chop during the climb.
Moderate chop. Yeah, moderate chop during climb. Absolutely. Awesome. So how do you guys feel so far with the PIREPs? Pretty simple? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Ready to move on to Windsor Loft? Okay, great. Let's see. I told you today was going to be pretty easy, and I was not lying when it comes to this. All right, winds aloft. It's the same thing, right? So when you guys go onto the aviationweather.gov, you want to just go to products and do winds aloft. So the winds aloft is important to kind of review and to know about, because it's going to basically determine like, oh, if I plan for maybe this altitude, you're doing like your initial flight planning, right? If I plan for this altitude, you can go onto the winds aloft to see, oh, at that altitude, let's just say, I don't know, 20,000 feet, right? You want to plan for 20,000. And you see that like the winds are kind of coming from, maybe you're going to the West Coast and the winds are coming from the East Coast, right? So you may experience a tailwind. So with the tailwind, it's going to increase or decrease your time like of arrival. So you're going to probably get there a little bit earlier. Okay. And then let's just say it's the opposite. And now you're experiencing some headwind. Well, you're going to burn more fuel during a headwind. So that's kind of something to keep in mind when you're looking at winds aloft is, do you have a tailwind? Do you have a headwind? How does this affect your fuel burns? Could you potentially go to maybe a different altitude? Things like that. So we're going to look at, just do the Northeast and load the data. The thing with winds aloft is, you know how we went over the METARs yesterday and the TAFs yesterday, and it was for basically that airport within a 5-mile radius of that airport. It's the same for the winds that we're reporting. It's the same exact thing, but at a different altitude now. So what you're really looking at is the wind proportion on a METAR. It's just basically in a chart sense. Pretty easy. So when we're looking at this first guy, right, the BDL over here, and then at 3,000. So this is going to be that location, and then the altitude. So 3,000, 6,000, 9,000, 12,000, 18,000, so forth, so forth. So the BDL, it's saying that the winds is 310 at 14 knots. So basically, it's just going to give you the first like 2 numbers in the direction and then the speed of it. So if we look over here, and they're not reporting anything in temperature wise, but if we go over to the 6,000, right, the winds are 270 at 12 and it's negative 13 degrees. And then when you move up into the chart, you can see where it says 30,000. It's going to be, they're not going to tell you if something's negative or not, because if you read up here where it says it's valid from this day to this time, temps negative above 24,000. So you can just assume that every single temperature after 24,000 feet is going to be negative. So for the 30,000, right, the winds are coming from 270 at 81 knots, which is crazy. And it's negative 50 for the wind speed, or for the temperature, excuse me. So if we go over here to the 34,000, who can tell me the direction of the wind and the speed?
For which one? I'll do it. Which one you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So I should highlight it because there's a lot going on. Okay, go for it. The one that's the BDL for 34,000.
Okay, so the winds are coming from 270 at 71 knots. Is that accurate? And then
That is.
negative 51 degrees Celsius for the temperature.
Yeah, exactly. I know the
Yeesh.
winds are really high over here. Perfect. And then if you see, let me see if I can pull one up. Okay, so I don't see one on this chart by just looking at it briefly for a second. But if you see where it says like 99, right, like 9900, that just means that it's light and variable for the winds. So the wind direction, the wind speed is just light and variable, right? But if you go down here where it says 770755, well, there's no way like that when you're looking at this, you're like 770, like where is that coming from? Because if you look at like compass, it only goes to 360 degrees, right? So in this case, what you would have to do if you see a 6 as your first number or 7 as your first number, and I want to say an 8, but you're usually just going to see a 6 or a 7 for the first number here. What you have to do is you have to subtract 50. So you'll subtract 50 from 77, right? Which is, let's see. I just used my calculator for some quick math, which is 27. So it would be 270 for the direction of the wind. And then what you would have to do is add 100 for the speed. So instead of it being 07 as a speed, it's 107, and then negative 55 for the temperature. So
Okay,
you're
can you
always
repeat
going
that?
to
So you subtract 50 for the wind direction and you
Mhm.
add 100 for the wind speed. Is that correct?
correct. So you'll always do that. If you see a 7, you'll always see that. If you're subtracting 50, you're always going to add 100 onto the speed. It's never going to be one or the other. So let's see if we go down to, okay. If we go down to this one right here, so for RIC for 34,000, so you can see that it's 7607 and then negative 53. Well, in order to find out what my wind speed and direction is coming from, you're going to do 76 minus 50, which is 260. And then you're going to add 100 to the speed, so 107. So it's coming from 260, the direction 260 at 107 knots, minus 53 for the temperature. Everybody with me so far? Cool. Easy peasy. Awesome. I am so glad that makes sense. So that's pretty much winds aloft, to be honest with you. It's just a meter, except for it's up in the sky, and all of that's reporting is the direction, the speed, and the temperature. So that's pretty much it. So you can kind of, when you go onto the whole like performance charts and everything like that, and planning like what altitude you want to fly at, of course, there's going to be numerous of factors, especially when you're in person doing them, because you may have some MELs that are going to restrict you guys to certain altitudes, just a heads up. But you'll be looking at this to determine like as well like what the winds are doing, and if you're going to have a headwind versus a tailwind, if you need to add more fuel, if you don't need to add more fuel, where you get like a better performance by looking at those performance charts and then deciding out what altitude you want to choose. So that's pretty much it for winds aloft. Are you feeling good on it? Do you want to kind of read a couple more examples? Yay, nay? Oh yeah, for the ADX. Yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of questions on these. But
Can we
like
do
I
a
said,
couple
if you
more
guys know,
examples?
yeah, you want to go over more examples? Absolutely. Okay, let's change. Okay, let's change it up a little bit. All right, let's do. Oh, here's an 8 one. Okay, so let's do this one. For PUB at 30,000. So PUB 30,000. Who wants to tell me what the wind, or who just wants to tell me what this is saying? So what the winds are doing right now, or not doing, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack that.
I think I can.
The direction of the winds, where the winds are coming from, and the speed and the temperature.
Looks like. Go ahead. Sure.
Whoever wants
No,
to go.
you spoke first. Go ahead. It's fine.
The winds out of 350 at 103 knots, and then -47 temperature.
Perfect. Exactly. Because you're subtracting that 50 and adding that 100 onto it. And then let's see. So then, oh, that guy right over here, the 9900. What does that mean? Anybody wants to put it in the group chat or in the messages or to say it? That's fine. But what does this guy mean again? The 9900?
Common variable.
Perfect. All right, let's move on down to. Okay, this one right here, RKS. It should be underneath 39,000 feet. I will highlight it. So who wants to say where the wind direction, the wind speed, and the temperature on this?
From 360 at 103 knots and -65 degrees.
Yeah, 360 for the wind direction, and then 103 knots, and then -65. That is really cold up there. Let's see. Okay, and then what about this guy over here? So the one I just highlighted for BCE, and I believe it's going to be for 12,000. What is that telling us?
It's 360 degrees, so north at 25 knots, and temperature is -2 degrees Celsius.
Perfect. Awesome.
And quick question. So it looks like, according to this, then that they use 36 instead of 00, right? For a direct north wind.
Yeah,
That-
you'll never
that's
see 00
Never see it, okay.
when it's coming from like directly. Yeah, you'll never see that. Because if you just envision like what is it, the compass, right? North is really going to be 360. And then it, like, once it passes that true north is when it goes to the 001 or whatever. So if it's coming from like the north, like the true north, it's always going to be 360 or 36. Well, 360, 36. But yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
And then, yeah, not a problem. All righty. And then what about this guy over here at Phoenix underneath 12,000? What's that guy doing? What's happening at 12,000? Anybody?
Looks like the wind's coming from 030 at 15 knots and temperatures +1.
Yeah, so 1 degree Celsius. So it's not negative just yet. And you can see over here at Phoenix, right? It's 13 degrees Celsius, so it's not negative just yet. Doesn't get negative until it gets to that 18,000 feet. But then again, 24,000 feet and beyond, you just automatically assume that it's negative. So they don't put the negative sign on there. And then, let's see. What about MBW at 9,000? What is it doing there? What's the winds doing?
Are they coming out of 320 at 25 knots? And
Yeah.
no temperature today.
Yeah, they don't have a temperature on this right now. And you can kind of see that like over here that temperature like that it's missing from like the 3,000 up to like 6,000 on some of these airports. I don't know exactly why some of them are missing on the 6,000. I'll make sure to reach out to Jaden though, just to kind of clarify it. But to my understanding, it's not going to be reported if it's within 1,500 of the field elevation. So that's why sometimes like that 3,000 is missing. But I'm not too sure why 6,000 would be missing on some of them versus others. So I'll make sure to just ask Jaden that quick question, just so you guys have that answer and just to clarify anything as well. But let's see what is happening in South Central. Okay, what about JAN at 39,000? Who wants to tell me what this is doing? What the wind direction, wind speed, and temperature is doing?
Direction is from 260. Pressure looks a little wild. Is 99 correct? Or is it
For the speed, yes, 99 knots. So it's 260 at 99 knots.
okay? And negative 48 degrees Celsius.
Perfect.
So
yeah, some of these places. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, at what point during your shift would you look at these and be able to make an assessment on, I guess, any decision on alternates or whatever it could be?
So okay, when you're talking about alternates, you're just solely looking at your the meters, right? And like what the TAFs are reporting is what you're looking at when it comes to those landing alternates. The takeoff alternates is going to be the same kind of concept, and you'll learn about that on Monday, where basically when an airplane takes off and for some reason they need to turn back to the airport, they have to make sure that the weather meets what's ever on those minimums for the approach plates. When it comes to the whole winds aloft, in theory, you're not going to use this essentially. When you're actually like on the job, this is more for like planning, because like that's what we're doing. We're teaching you guys how to get your dispatching license. And that means from learning everything, like from pen and paper, like from scratch, right? How to plan everything. But when you actually get onto the job, everything is computerized for you. So all you're really doing is just making sure, are my NOTAMs good? Do I have anything that I need to discuss with like the captain? Should he be concerned with anything as far as like maybe an ILS to a certain runway is not working right now? Or maybe there is only, the airport is closed during a certain time period, something like that. And as far as like weather goes, like what is the weather doing at the airport? Again, like when you're planning the flight itself, just making sure like you're not going into an active squall line thunderstorm area. But everything is pretty much computerized. So you're not really going to use the winds aloft, if that makes sense, when you're planning, because it will tell you what altitude to plan for in a way. Like if you run your flight plan, it will say, okay, like this is the altitude that we're planning for. And then you can kind of choose if you want to kind of change things around. So like for shorter flights, for example, maybe like they're like an hour apart, like let's just say from Daytona to Atlanta, right? It's like a really short flight, like a 45-minute to an hour flight. We're not going to want to put something that's 40,000 feet up in the air for that short amount period of time, because basically all you're going to do is just climb up to your top of climb and then go back, like you're going to start descending, right? So in that case, we would just change the altitude that we want. But I guess you're kind of using your best judgment with it. You're like, you don't want to plan for something super low. You kind of want to just do something that's more like fuel efficient. So like maybe 23,000 feet is what you would really plan for. But you're not really utilizing the winds aloft chart when you're actually on the job. If hopefully that helps and makes sense. But for planning purposes in this class, because you have to learn like how to do like the performance charts, like what you're looking at, what altitude that you're going to choose from, things like that. Like you have to know how to do winds aloft. Like you have to know how to read the winds aloft, but you're not actually going to be utilizing it. At least in my experience, I was never utilizing it at Spirit. So hopefully that made a little sense. Perfect. How are you guys feeling on this? Do you want to continue going over some, or do you want to take a little break and then come back, do some standard temperature at a certain altitude, kind of learn things like that, and then move on? Or do you guys want more practice reading them? It's pretty much, like I said, it's pretty much just like the wind direction and wind speed that you're reading on a meter, except for it's up at a certain altitude right now. Rebecca?
I had a question about this report. So it gives
Yeah.
you the option for 6 hours, 12 hours, or 24. What would you like need to decide which option to pick? On the
What are you
very-
on this report on the winds aloft?
Yeah.
Well, it's
I
basically
think-
just telling you the that's valid until the 4th at 000 Zulu. And that you can, it's for use between the 200 to 03. So it's basically just telling you, hey, this chart right here is valid at this time. And then, I mean, for use that to look at it during, I guess, this time, I personally, I mean, I feel like the for use is kind of, I don't want to say silly or anything like that because that's the wrong term to use, but we kind of don't pay too mindful of attention when we're looking at the charts and planning for it at the whole for use. We just got to make sure it's valid. If
Got it.
that
So
answers the
you
question.
If you set the forecast option like on the more towards the top of the screen to like 12 hours, I guess kind of like what would be the difference? 12 or 24? How would that change things?
So, okay, I see what you're saying. So I guess in this case, like you're never, okay, let's back things up a little bit. When we're doing flight planning, right, you'll always use the forecast, like the 6-hour mark, just because if you do the 12-hour mark, it pushes the time back, right? Or not back, it pushes the time more forward essentially. So you're not going to be planning a flight using a forecast with 12 hours from now. So you'll want to do the 6-hour, like, hey, I want to see what the forecast doing is for the next 6 hours versus, oh, I want to see what the forecast is doing for the next 12 hours. You're never going to plan a flight that far in advance. So in this sense, you'll use that 6-hour mark.
That helps. Thank you.
Does that hopefully clarify it? Or because I don't want to make things unclear. So does that make sense though with everybody? Where that we would want to use like the most forward time, I guess you can say. Perfect. And I guess if you look at it too, if you're the time changes too from, so this is going to be valid on the 4th at 0600 Zulu. And it's going to be in between those two times that you would want to use this chart. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns on this? Do you want to continue reading some different ones? Do you guys want to move on? Do you want to continue reading some? Do you have any questions, comments on it? Katie says she feels comfortable with them. Does everybody else kind of feel comfortable with it, what you're reading, or would you like to spend a little bit more time? Okay, cool. So what we will do is we'll take a quick little 10-minute break and then we'll come back. We'll figure out how to find the standard temperature at a certain altitude, and then kind of see just like what the deviation is, right? Just because, of course, you know, if it's like with the standard temperature, it's important that we figure out like, okay, is it going to be warmer or is it colder than the standard temperature? Because that obviously is going to affect the whole performance of the aircraft. So you may need to plan for more fuel. You may need to plan for maybe a runway that is a little bit longer than usual, especially like on a hot day, right, where the air density is not as condensed. So we'll take a look into that. And then after that, we will go do the study guide, and that's kind of it. So easy peasy night. But as long as you guys understand the material, that's obviously the main part of this, making sure that we understand it, how to use it, making sure we know how to do the calculations, things like that. So we'll take a quick little 10-minute break. It is 8:32 my time, so just come back at the 42-minute mark. Perfect. All right, is everybody back yet? Perfect. I'm trying to see if my iPad will connect to a certain thing really quick to be able to write what we're about to learn down a little bit. Give me just one second, guys. Just stand by one moment. Okay. So while I get this to maybe work, let's see. Okay. So you guys know what the standard pressure or the standard temperature at sea level is, correct? And what is it if you guys do know?
1013.
You guys should know. Say it again.
1013 hectopascal.
So it's 15 degrees at mean sea level, right? For standard temperature. So basically, when we talk about trying to find the standard temperature at an altitude, we're going to use that 2 degrees per every 1,000 foot. And just give me 1 second, because I kind of want to be able to write this down to show you what we're kind of doing versus just talking out loud with it. Okay. Class meeting. I'm gonna just share my screen here. Okay. Let's see. Give me just 1 second, guys. Sorry. Okay. Well, if you guys have a piece of paper and pen, it might be better to write this down. So our standard our standard temperature at mean sea level is going to be that 15 degrees Celsius, right? And the whole reason why we want to see what the standard temperature is, and then what like the differences between the outside temperature and what the standard temperature is at that altitude that we're looking for, is just because it's basically just going to affect the performance of our aircraft, right? So you know that on a cold day, the air density is going to be really condensed, right? So your aircraft is just going to perform better versus like on a hot day where the aircraft is not going to perform the best. And that's going to maybe lead to some more fuel that's going to be on board. It's going to lead to those takeoff distances being a little bit longer, especially on those rollouts. It's going to reduce that lift and potentially reducing the maximum takeoff weight, right? If it's warmer, because warm air is less dense than cold air. So eventually, you'll be looking at some performance charts to where you'll have to kind of decide like, okay, is this warmer? Is it colder than the standard temperature? If it is, what am I looking at here? That's something that's all going to be taught to you in 2 weeks, I believe, when you start doing the actual flight plan itself. So we're just kind of learning about how to calculate that in a sense, right? Because if you have the calculations down, then you'll be able to read those charts pretty easy. So like I said, this standard temperature at mean sea level is going to be 15 degrees Celsius, right? And let's just say we want to go up to, let's just make it an easy number. We'll say 3,000 feet, right? We want to know what is the temperature doing where's the standard temperature at 3,000 feet? So in this case, we're going to go ahead and use that 2 degrees because when you climb for every 2 degrees Celsius by 1,000 feet. So you lose 2 degrees Celsius for every 1,000 feet, excuse me. So in this case, we want to go up to 3,000. You can easily just kind of count it right on your hand, like 2, 4, 6. So that would be 6 degrees. Or what we can do is kind of just make it just a little bit quick, easy math. So you'll just take the 3. Instead of taking 3,000, you're just going to take 3 times 2. That's 6, right? So the standard temperature at 3,000 feet should be 6 degrees Celsius. And now we want to find out exactly like the difference of that, right? So the standard temperature at sea level is 15, at 3,000 is at 6 degrees. So what is the ice set to that? Okay. So all we're going to do is just do 15 minus 6. Oh, excuse me. So 15 minus 6 is going to be 9 degrees Celsius. So then what we are going to do is we want to find out the actual deviation, right? We want to know exactly like, is it warmer? Is it reporting colder than the actual temperature? So in order to find the deviation, quick and easy math, it's going to be the actual temperature. And I'm just writing this down in my notes section here. This way, as I'm talking, I can see what I'm writing as well, minus the ice set temperature. And that's going to give you your ice set deviation. So in this case, let's just say you were, let's just say you were reading maybe, or let's just say at 3,000 feet, the actual temperature that you see that's being reported is going to be 10 degrees for whatever reason. We're just making up kind of numbers here to just get the gist of everything. So it's going to be 10 degrees, right? We're going to minus that ISA temperature, which is going to be what we just subtracted 15, which is your standard at mean sea level, versus your standard at 3,000. So that's going to be 9. So 10 minus 9 is 1. So then when you're looking at these performance charts, right, you have an ISA deviation of +1. So essentially, it's just saying that it's like 1 degree Celsius from the standard temperature. So it's not really like a big drastic change. I think these performance charts, they go from like standard temperature, and then it's, I believe if I'm not mistaken, it's -5 degrees from standard, -10 degrees colder from standard. And then, you know, in the positive, so like +5 degrees, +10 degrees warmer than the standard temperature. And it will make sense a little bit once you actually see the performance charts. I was trying to look online onto the drive, and for some reason mine is like not in PDF form, so it's kind of like all scattered everywhere. So I don't really have a good like example to show you of the performance charts, what I'm talking about. But you should, when you get in person as well, they give you guys binders, and it will have those performance charts, including like the flight plans, and it includes like the dispatch release and everything like that will be in your binder. So you'll be able to reference everything. And that binder is yours for like when you go on the practical as well. Those charts are yours to use during the practical. So let's see. I also might have a video that explains this just a little bit more in depth. Again, it's kind of just basic math when it comes to kind of figuring things out. For example, give me just one moment. I'm just looking at my notes really quick. I'm just trying to see if I can send something that, like a video that kind of shows just like somebody actually writing everything down like on a whiteboard, so you can like visually see it all. And it talks a little bit more in depth about everything when it comes to like the deviation. But that's pretty much how you find the standard temperature, and then what the ISA and then deviation is. Let me see. Give me just one moment. Okay, there's a video that I am. Oh, I don't want the music on this. There's a video that I am going to see if it plays on here, like with the audio and stuff like that, just because I think it is beneficial to kind of watch somebody like handwrite everything out on a whiteboard. So if you guys are okay with that, I'm going to try just doing a better video of this. Let's see. Oh, that's not what I wanted. And we're not going to watch the whole thing just because there's like 24 minutes of this. Okay, let me know if you can hear this. Can you guys hear this a little bit?
Actually, they post a link and then we just go look at it ourselves.
Yeah, but I want to, okay, we can do that, and we can take a couple minutes to review this. Okay, we're not going to do the whole 24 minutes of this, I believe. Let me just see something. Okay. We're gonna go up to the 10-minute mark on it, just because the first 10 minutes is basically what I was trying to like walk you guys through. So let's just take 10 minutes. I want you guys to kind of just play this, look at what he's writing on the board, how he's explaining this, right? So kind of just start from the beginning. Click on the link, start from the beginning. And then once you, well, we shall all be done in 10 minutes actually. So we'll review the first 10 minutes of it and then we'll come back together as a group and a team. So go ahead, hit play on that, watch it for the first 10 minutes, kind of take notes. Maybe if something's confusing, let me know. But let's watch what he's doing. So it should be done at 9:08 is when we should all be kind of back and regrouped. Sounds good? Okay. All right, everybody went through the first 10 minutes. Right, okay, yeah. Everybody's still going through it? Okay. Sometimes with those, it's easier to kind of like see it being done versus like me trying to explain it. Just because it's very simple, but it's simple if you can visually see it. And I know that in person, they definitely go over that like all over again, once again, just like as a review. But like when you're first hearing about it, it's just easier to kind of just see like the math being worked out essentially. So did that make sense as to like how he calculated it, how he found like the standard pressure at altitude? Oh, good. Very good. I'm glad. Awesome. And then I also linked just like a reading, like if you want to just read about it as well, I put a link down there. But definitely I would say maybe like save that video. I mean, I can post it in like the classroom as well. Just so you guys can have as a reference to go over, but it's very easy once you just see how it's being done, essentially. It's easy to understand like how to do the calculation on it because it's very just simple, basic math. That's pretty much ISA and deviation. And then, like I said, once you get into the whole doing the flight plan, which I'm just kind of looking ahead just to see. Once you do the flight plans, it should be in week 6. Actually, it might be in week 5, the beginning of week 5, but definitely in week 6. When you do that, the ISA and the deviation and to figure out like what the standard temperature is at a certain altitude, it's easy to put that to like apply it to the performance charts and what you're looking for, because you're just essentially, you have this information. Okay, what am I looking for on this performance chart? So it's very, very easy to apply in that sense. But any questions about it? I can hopefully answer it without confusing anybody. You guys feel pretty good with reading that and watching it? Okay, cool. So I guess we'll just move on to the whole study guides. So if you have, I would suggest maybe if you didn't print it out, maybe just like taking notes, turning your Word document into a PDF if it's not a PDF already. And we'll just go through the whole study guide together. This way you can knock that out of the way. Because like I said, the next, basically after today, is all about learning about navigation and the approach plates and actually applying the weather to the approach plates. And that stuff is something that you want to make sure your full attention is on. Just because if you don't have any like prior aviation experience, you never got exposed to this before, it's just something that can be not overwhelming, but something that you just want to make sure that you're fully focused on versus like worrying about other additional things like getting a study guide submitted at a time. So let's see, I am going to go back here. And then just backtrack before we move on to this. Does everybody feel good about those PIREPs and about the winds aloft and ISA then? Like everybody's good on all 3 of those subjects? Okay, cool. Does everybody have their week 4 study guide out? Okay. Awesome. So let's just go through it. I'm going to, we'll read the question together. We'll answer it together. There is 53 questions, it looks like. I think some of it though, some of it you'll be able to actually, you'll know what things mean. So we'll just kind of go through maybe at least like the majority of it. So question number 1 that I have is, what does METAR stand for? Again, if you want to put it in the message chat, absolutely feel free to. If you want to come off mute, feel free to, just as long as we're participating in some way or form. So what does a METAR stand for? Perfect. Tatum is absolutely correct. It's the Meteorological Aerodrome Report. And then if I'm also going too fast, let me know, please. And then how often are they issued? Hourly. Awesome. And then what are the 5 required items in a METAR? We went over this, but I didn't say that they were required items. But what are the 5 things that are reported, I guess, in a METAR is what you can kind of think about.
I got wind direction and speed, visibility, sky conditions, temperature, and altimeter.
Yes, perfect. Exactly. So it's the wind direction, speed, visibility, sky condition, temperature, and altimeter. Just to repeat what Lakeisha said. And then what is a SPECI-METAR?
Especially METARs, it's an unscheduled METAR reporting a significant change in weather.
Perfect. Absolutely. Absolutely correct. And then when may that SPECI-METAR be issued?
Anytime in between the normal hourly report.
Absolutely. So you can, if you want to just put, is issued in between, yep, the normal hourly reporting if there's significant changes to the weather. But also what you said is completely fine. And then what does a TAF stand for? Yep, Terminal Aerodrome Forecast. And then how often are they issued? I don't think we talked about this one yesterday. We talked about how valid they're issued, but do you guys know how often they're issued? They're issued at least 4 times a day every 6 hours. And then how long are they valid for? Perfect. 24 or 30 hours. Absolutely. And then what is an amended or corrected TAF?
It's a unscheduled TAF issued in between normal 6-hour reporting times if significant forecasted weather changes happen.
Perfect. And is that an amended one or is that a corrected one? That definition that we
sorry.
just gave.
Amended.
Perfect. And then a corrected TAF is just basically a TAF that has been corrected exactly like it says due to an error that was in the previous one. Everybody good so far? Perfect. And then what is the difference between a METAR and a TAF?
METAR is current conditions, the TAF is forecast.
Perfect. And then, okay, and then what is the definition of a conditional language? I feel like that should say what's the definition of a tempo, but basically it's conditions which last less than half of the conditional time frame for less than an hour at a time. All right, next question is what is an air mat? And then what type of weather is associated with air mats?
I have kind of a long one. So it stands for Airmen's Meteorological Information, and it's a report issued to pilots that describes a potentially hazardous condition not normally issued in the forecast. And then for the weather associated, it's usually light to moderate in severity. Could be moderate icing, turbulence, and then I have sustained surface winds of greater than 30 knots, and then also mountain obscurations.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be moderate turbulence for it. Does everybody have that? Or is everybody writing that down before I move on to the next one? Just because that was a pretty long one. All right. And then how long are air mats valid for? 6 hours. Very good. And then what is the segment? And then what type of weather is associated with them?
SIGMETs are significant meteorological information. It's for severe weather conditions, so severe turbulence, severe icing, widespread sandstorms, and also volcanic ash.
Perfect. And then how long are those valid for?
$4.
Perfect. They're valid for 4 hours. Exactly. And then, okay, so we talked about those two. And then what's a convective segment? So it's basically a report that just talks about hazardous, severe convective weather, right? So those tornadoes, the line of thunderstorms, the embedded thunderstorms, the hail greater than 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And those are going to be valid for 2 hours. That's question number 17. And then we talked about this one. What is a PIREP? So we know it stands for pilot report. But what essentially it is a report of weather conditions encountered by aircraft in a flight. And then what are some things a pilot would report in a PIREP?
A header, aircraft location, time, flight level, aircraft type, and then one other field stating the weather conditions encountered by that aircraft.
Yeah, exactly. And then what are the two types of PIREPs? So we have the UA, which is the, I guess I didn't really say what it stands for, upper air. So upper air PIREP, which is the normal report. And then the UUA, which is that urgent upper air PIREP. And then the next one is going to be that automatic surface observing system. So 21 is basically going to be a system that is used at airports to provide real-time automatic reports of the weather conditions, and it's updated every minute. And then an ATIS is going to be the Automatic Terminal Information Service, which is just going to be a continuous broadcast of a recorded aeronautical information at airports, basically giving them important weather and operational details. So it will contain current weather conditions. It's going to contain some runway information. It's going to contain airport information, and other relevant information, like any NOTAMs that may be in effect.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I don't remember when you call a number, like for an airport, is that the ATIS? Which report is that? Do you know what I'm talking about? How you can call it from your phone?
I guess it depends on what type of system they have, because not everybody has, like, not every airport has an ATIS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it would depend on what the airport, like, what they have. If it's like the AWAS, if it's the ASAS, or the however you say this word,
Okay.
or if it's the ATIS.
Okay, so it can be either of them.
Yeah, it could be either of them.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, okay, we didn't go over this one, but I'm pretty sure you guys went over this one last week. But what does IFR stand for, and what are IFR conditions?
Yeah, instrument flight rules. The conditions are less than 1,000-foot ceiling, and I don't remember what the visibility is.
Yeah, so it's ceiling
Less than
below
3
1,000.
miles.
3 miles?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Whoever just answered that. So ceiling below 1,000 feet, and then visibility less than 3 statute miles. And then we have, what does MFVR stand for? And what are those conditions? So it's going to be the marginal visual flight rules. Ceilings are going to be 1,000 to 3,000 feet, and then the visibility is 3 to 5 miles, statute miles. So when you're also looking, when it talks about like the legal to go, and you're looking at your destination and your takeoff and your destination and your departure airport, right? You can kind of see, like, if it's a VFR day, standard VFR day, you're not going to need really anything. Like, you're not going to need an alternate, essentially, unless there's something like some incoming weather coming in, you might need it. But otherwise, if something's like marginal flight rules, that has a potential of going down to IFRs. In that case, like, you would have to make sure, obviously, it meets that 1, 2, 3 rule. But if it does meet that rule and it's like slightly right above it, since it is marginal, something I would consider is just adding maybe an alternate to it, or adding at least more additional fuel, like dispatch add fuel. Which I can show you what a flight plan, once we get through all this, I'll show you what a flight plan looks like, because I do have one that I saved. I just have to go digging for it. Let's see. And then what does VFR stand for? And then what are those VFR conditions?
Visual flight rules, and that's ceilings greater than 3,000 feet and visibility of more than 5 statute miles plus clear skies.
Perfect. And then what is CAT, and what does it stand for? And it's not the animal of a cat.
Clear air turbulence.
Yeah, exactly. It's clear air turbulence. And there's no visual clues of you're about to enter that area. And then what is wake turbulence? going to be turbulent air behind an aircraft caused by wingtip vortices, rotor tip, jet engine thrust stream, or jet blast, or prop wash. Let's see. And then what is LLWS and what does it stand for? You'll actually also see this on a PIREP sometimes if they're experiencing this. Yep, so it's low level wind shear, and then it's wind that rapidly changes in either direction or strength, and it's very common with thunderstorms. And then, does anybody know why dispatchers should avoid filing their aircraft into or around volcanic ash?
It can damage the engines.
Yeah, it can damage them. It can cause the engine to fail. So you just don't want to, you don't want to do that. If there's like an airmet for volcanic ash, or there's some type of like thing out there for volcanic ash, you kind of just want to read more into it. At Spirit, I think we had certain sites that we can go on to. Of course, they were like FAA approved from like the actual country itself, but we can go in and see like, okay, like what's going on with like this volcano. Is it like currently like erupting, or like do they have like anything, kind of any activity happening around it? Should we be concerned of it? So that's something that you'll learn on the job as well, as far as like when you're dispatching to a certain area that has volcanoes, where you would go look for that information. And then what are some different types of surface visibility restrictions?
Fog, snow, dust and sand, smoke, haze, and heavy rain.
Perfect. And then we'll go up to question 38, and then we'll take, because you guys get technically a break every hour of this class, so we'll take a little break after this, maybe like a longer break, like a 15-minute break or so, and then come back and finish it. So let's see, what is the purpose of a weather observer? Kind of silly, the question, because I guess it's giving you the answer for the question. It's a person who records weather conditions every day at scheduled times. And then what does RA stand for? So if you see RA in a METAR or a TAF, what does that stand for?
Rain.
Yay! And then what does PR stand for?
Partial.
Yep, partial. And then what does FU stand for? And it doesn't mean what we think it means. Smoke, awesome. And then what does TS stand for? Thunderstorms, awesome. What does BR stand for, or baby rain stand for? Mist, cool. What does VC stand for? Cindy, awesome. What does GR stand for? Al, awesome. And we'll take it's 9:31. Like I said, you guys get a break every hour technically. So we'll take a 15-minute break. This way you guys can have some snacks or start dinner of some sort. We'll come back at 40, well, it's 9:32. So we'll come back at 47. We'll finish questions 39 through 53. I'll see if I can pull up a flight plan that I did from years ago at Spirit. And we can kind of just look at it, and then if you guys have any other questions after that, I'll answer them. And then we'll just go from there. Kind of finish class early, like I said, a very easy peasy night. So I will see you guys back in 15 minutes. All right, everybody back. Perfect. So we will continue on. Where did my thing just go? Let me see. Okay. So, question number 39 is, what does PY stand for? Spray, awesome. And then what does PL stand for?
Pressure.
Yes. And then
Ice pellets.
what happened?
Was wrong.
And yeah. Yeah, some of these are, I mean, some of them are like, okay, that's easy. And then some of them you're like, oh, wait a second, maybe not. Like this one, what does MI stand for? I don't know how they got this from MI, but going to be shallow, perfect. And then the easy ones, you know, what does SN stand for? Snow, awesome. And then who can describe rime ice? So basically, rime ice is going to be that like milky white color, right? It's basically going to be flying through like stratiform clouds or some filmy clouds. It is small, super cold water droplets that it sticks to like those antennas. It's going to stick to the instrument probes. It's going to stick to like the leading edges. The way I always remember rime ice is basically like if you open up your freezer and you kind of see like little shavings like outside of like the ice area. That's what I think of like rime ice is. And then what is clear ice, or can somebody describe clear ice? So clear ice is going to be almost like a gloss, like a glazed ice that is heavy coating. So basically when you're flying in areas and it's going to be large, super cold water droplets that as soon as they hit the surface, right, it's pretty much going to like extend over the fuselage before it like freezes. So it is clear ice is the most dangerous kind of ice, just so you guys know. And then of course mixed ice is just going to be that mixture of clear and rime ice. And then okay, so we're going to get into like kind of the symbol. So it's hard for me to like, I guess, say what the symbol is. So question 46, it should be moderate turbulence, that like little like mountain symbol, I guess. And then question 47, it's like a U with like 3 strikes in between, right? So that's going to be the severe icing. And then these you guys should know. So then 48, what does this symbol represent? The triangle. Cold front, awesome. And then what about question 49? Warm front, awesome. And then what is 50? What's that symbol? Stationary. What about 51? It's a trough, awesome. And then 52 is a dry line. Cool. And then 53 is what is the wind value, direction, temperature of the following wind barred? So what's that symbol? I guess how many knots of wind does that symbol show?
Is that 75 plus?
75 knots. It looks like it's coming from like the northwest to the southeast. And then that negative 38 is going to be your temperature. So negative 38 degrees Celsius. Cool. Any questions on that little study guide? Everybody has it filled out. This way you guys can submit them when they're due. Get 100% on it. Awesome. So then pretty much, I mean, the last thing I have left is really, I'll show you guys what gotta download them really quick. I'll show you what kind of a flight plan looks like. From at least what we've used as Spirit. This way you can kind of see like, you know, what to get excited about. I don't know. I think these things are kind of exciting. So kind of see what's happening. And then for the in-person, I did reach out to Jaden. I totally forgot to say in the beginning of the class, but I did reach out to Jaden and he said the examiners, the names are Jake, Emily, and Garrett. So those are your 3 examiners that you, one of them you're going to get. I think they can only take, I may be wrong on this one, but I'm pretty sure they can only take like maybe 3 a day. I might be wrong on that. But I think it's only 3 a day that they're able to take technically. Okay. So really quick, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, awesome. Here is my little screen. And then, so basically, when you got onto the job and you go to release the flight, right, there's going to be a lot of stuff that gets sent out to them. Some of the stuff I've never even like actually looked at per se, just because I don't want to say it wasn't important, but there's just some stuff that you don't actually look at when you're dispatching, like as far as documents go, what you're sending them, just because it comes in like it's just a whole packet that you're just like, you make sure everything looks good. You make sure that the main parts are there, like your drift down method was showing. You're making sure that, you know, you have your alternates on there. You're making sure that you have your NOTAMs in there. And that everything checks off. There's no like red boxes like saying like, hey, you're above the maximum landing or you're above the maximum takeoff weight, things like that. So for instance, this is the TLR, so the takeoff and landing report that was sent for this aircraft. So that was the flight number. This is where they were going. They were going from Dallas Fort Worth or DFW to MCO. And this is how long ago this was, but it was on June 1st of 2023. So this gets sent over to the captain and to the first officer. Basically just tells you like if there's any NOTAMs. I mean, tells you like the runways, the length of the runways. This isn't something that I per se was like, we just made sure that they had a TLR, but we never actually went into depth of like, oh, what's on the TLR when we were dispatching this. We just made sure that this was something that they did have in the packet. So, I mean, it basically just talks about really the runways, you know, the V1, the VR, the V2. So like your rotation speed, your decision speed, things like that. So that's pretty much it. If it was a wet runway or not. So that's kind of what the TLR looked like. And then, let's see, I'll get out of that. And then this was going to be the weather that was sent over to them. So pretty much something super simple for them to kind of see what was going on. There was like some isolated embedded thunderstorms happening. I'm pretty sure this is where I added 2 alternates onto this airport. But it's basically just telling you, you know, what the weather is essentially doing in that area. And then city pair comparison. I honestly don't really know what this was used for, because it was something that, you know, when we're dispatching, we're not really paying attention for the city pair. Like I said, there's certain documents that you make sure that they have, and this was not one of them, but it comes with the packet that we sent to them. This was another page where it was talking about like the fuel message that was for them. So the total ramp fuel was 26,224 pounds. The passengers book was 182 passengers, maximum takeoff weight. So that's pretty much what they got to them. Let's see. Here's all those. Just basically the general information. So if there was any overflight permits, which, I mean, we didn't do any of the permits. That's something that dispatch doesn't do. Some companies, they have their own that like submit the overflight permits. I think Delta has their own job. It's like a job role for this. So we didn't have to worry about like making sure that the permits were in there. We didn't have to submit any overflight permits essentially, but yeah, it just talks about some of the NOTAMs. You'll see there was the taxiway F4 was closed in between certain times. You guys are going over NOTAMs with Allison next week, if I saw it correctly on the schedule. So you'll learn how to actually read a NOTAM if you haven't been exposed to it yet. So you'll learn all about that, all about like what applies to what. So it just talked about some of the systems like the nav, the ILS for the runway 13 right on this one. That's something that you guys are going to learn tomorrow, is about all those approaches. So this is something that gets sent to them, and this is something that when you're doing your flight planning, you'll be checking those NOTAMs for. You're going to be checking those NOTAMs for if something's unserviceable, if something's out, if a runway is closed. You're going to be doing all of this. So Control F is going to be pretty much your best friend when it comes to like the FAA's website as far as like the NOTAMs go and stuff. But you're also going to be getting, if I'm not mistaken, in your binder for the flight plan, you'll get NOTAMs that are already printed out for you. So just as a heads up, I highly suggest that when you get to the whole NOTAM section, I'm pretty sure Allison may say something similar, if not the same thing, but basically have a highlighter with you. So have a highlighter with you when you go to the in-person proportion of it, because you're going to want to highlight, like, obviously there's a lot of different NOTAMs. Again, there's like stuff for the airport itself. There's stuff for the navigation system that they use. There's some stuff that we don't really need to necessarily apply when we're dispatching a flight. So you'll want to make sure that when you're in person that you're highlighting like if you choose runway, let's just say runway 25, right, at an airport. If you choose runway 25 for an airport, you're going to go through your NOTAMs and you're going to look for anything that has to do with that runway, and you're going to want to highlight it or make a mark of it, because it's something that like you need to be like, oh wait, there's something going on with this runway. Maybe it's closed. Maybe the only navigation system is not working. So then you might have to change your runway to something else. So just keep that in mind. Highlighter is going to be your best friend when it comes to all of this. But this is pretty much just, it just goes on and on and on about NOTAMs. I don't even know how many pages. I think 61 pages of NOTAMs that was sent to the pilots for this flight. So lots of NOTAMs. And then what else do we have? We just have some more weather reports. I think I already looked at that one. See, this was the flight plan that gets submitted to ATC. So this is what ATC gets. Let's see. All right. And then here's the actual flight plan. So over in this corner, right, it gives you what the aircraft is going to be. It's an IFR. It gives you your dates, your time, what type of aircraft it is, the airport that it's departing from, the airport that it's going to, the scheduled time of departure, scheduled time of arrival, how long that block is. It also talks about the fuel, right? If you tankered anything, if you saved anything on the money. We didn't really worry too much about the money part of it. How many passengers were booked, if it passed the rain test or not. This is where your drift down method is going to be. So drift down 1 or 2. When you're dispatching, you're going to put in, like, if you added any fuel on board, like any additional fuel, this is where you would add it. So for instance, I did add something to it. So I did dispatch ad for weather moving along the Gulf to Florida because there was some really nasty storms happening. And then 2 destination alternates for possible holding and weather at MCO. So I just threw in 2. This way they had some options to go to. Keep in mind though, when you do that, you're also adding more fuel on board. So that's kind of something like, you know, it goes hand on hand. You obviously don't want to make the airplane too heavy to where it can't take off. So you kind of just have to be a little bit more mindful of that because you can't really take, I mean, I guess you could take fuel off, but I guess in this sense, you wouldn't be able to. It would take forever. If there was any MELs or CDL items that were on here, so there was nothing really to report though on our side as like a dispatcher. This is my route that I chose. And then it basically just gave me my fuel, what the trip is, the taxiing out is, if I did any 10% to it, if there was any alternates. So I did Fort Lauderdale, your final reserve, your dispatch ad, there's any extra of it. So we had that. And then you had your 0 fuel weight numbers, your takeoff weight. So there was a couple of those on there. And then I added my alternates over here. So your alternates will show. It's going to show which alternates you choose, the distance to those alternates, and then how long it's going to take you to get to that alternate if you had to divert from like MCO to there, their flight level, and then the fuel. It's going to have your captain, your first officer, your name right over here. At Spirit, we had desk. That was a thing. So you would just go into the OCC, sit down at like obviously any chair, any computer that was available in the dispatching role or the dispatching row, excuse me. And then you would just see what desk needed to be covered. So either if you were coming in early in the morning, you were pretty much starting a new desk from scratch, or if you were coming in to relieve somebody, so like a later shift, you would take their desk number, and it was just like a virtual like desk essentially. So you would just go on and then just pull up. If they were in, for instance, I was in desk 33, they're going to pull desk 33 and it's going to show everything that I have for like flight wise, and it will show what is currently out flying and whatnot. So that's where that whole desk 33 comes from. And plus when the captain calls you up, they'll know what desk you're on, so they can, they make sure they get to you and not somebody else. And then pretty much the same thing, I guess, online. Page number 2. some of the stuff. There's just multiple pages to it. Excuse me, is going to talk about, let's see, what you file to ATC. Keep in mind there's certain codes in here, and it's been so long that I can't tell you what codes are what, but essentially ATC may reject your flight plan. Because like once you send it over to them, you're like, once you send this document to the captain, to the crew, you're also sending it to ATC as well. And they can come back and reject something. And they'll tell you what got rejected off of it. But also if you have I want to say it's an MEL, if you have an MEL, and it has to do with something with like, maybe like the flight altitude restrictions, there's a certain code that you make sure is in here or that's taken out of there. So just as a heads up, that's something that you'll also be doing. But yeah, basically just tells you, you know, like once you leave this airport, when you get to your next waypoint, how long it's going to be, what your fuel calculations are going to be throughout the whole entire route. So that's pretty much it. And then I think it tells you if you had an alternate as well, you technically have to have that in here, or the system has to have it in here. But your winds aloft, here we go. Here's your little winds aloft throughout the whole route over here. So again, that 270, 46, and then minus 52. So that's what that looks like. And I planned for altitude 30,000. So, and then if you just keep on scrolling down, but that's pretty much it on a whole flight plan. This just shows what your route. So this is something that the crew gets as well. So basically it's just taken off over here and it's just showing what route you're, like a visual of the route that you chose. So it's taken off. This is how I planned for it, coming down here and then landing in Orlando. So that's what the crew gets. So when you're also learning how to do your route building in this course, I can tell you that SkyVector is very, very touchy, we'll call it. So you'll notice that when you start doing it, that like it may not take certain things. You kind of have to play around with it. But just know that it is a little touchy. So like if you start putting something in and it doesn't catch it, or like, you know, it does like something really wonky with it, just try to like do it again. And it should hopefully work the second time around. And also like you have to put exactly what you want in there. And Allison, I believe it's Allison that is going to be going over the whole route building, or it's somebody else, but they'll show you exactly like what to look for, how to plug in like your stars and your SIDs, things like that. But basically when you do get to that proportion of it, right, you just want to kind of make sure that your route looks nice and smooth, that there's like really nothing funky going on. You know, it's not like, for instance, we're leaving Texas over here and then we're going down here and then we just like shoot up here to Atlanta and then shoot down here. So you want to just make sure it's like nothing wonky is happening. Again, with Spirit though, basically you pulled it up in the system. I'm going from DFW to MCO, and it had options already in the system that you just kind of chose from. So I didn't even build this route. It was something that was, I think it was an optimized route, or the preferred route to go from DFW to MCO. So that's the route I chose based on like what the weather was doing as well. And then I don't know what this last page is, but basically that's kind of it from what they receive, what the captain receives and what the first officer receives. So that's pretty much a whole flight plan once you get on the job. But I mean, that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions, comments, concerns about anything the last 2 days? Yeah, pretty easy stuff. just make sure, like I said, or like Jaden said, just get your ADX done if you haven't already done it, because you're going to need it in order to go to the in-person class. And then just keep on studying. When you get in person, there are going to be a bunch of instructors that are going to be there. They're going to be there probably a little bit earlier before class 2. So if you need any help with anything, they're going to be available. Definitely recommend taking the time with that. I did the in-person class, and I was there from like 9 a.m. from days up until basically 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. Definitely took advantage of it. We got into study groups. We were kind of going around the question, like going around the class in those study groups, and we were just asking each other a bunch of questions. We were reviewing the study guides. We were reviewing the mock practical, any previous tests that we did. We were reviewing that. But pretty much that's all I have. Basically, the next 2 days, besides Jeopardy on Friday, is just going to be learning about navigation. And then once you do Jeopardy, which Jaden is actually going to be doing the Jeopardy game with you guys, he's also going to go over that Legal to Go worksheet. So you'll do the Jeopardy, you'll go over the Legal to Go worksheet 7, and then he has just a review on basically everything, like the FAR as those primary flight controls. He'll definitely go over the whole what we learned today. So the PIREPs, winds and taps and loft. He'll go over the en route charts, the Jefferson charts. So it's basically just going to be a review after Jeopardy of everything that we learned in week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. And then after that, your following week is just basically learning about those approach charts. And then Ryan is the one that is going to go over route building. And then after that, you guys are in person pretty much. So almost there, but yeah, that's all I kind of have for you guys. If you guys don't have any questions, then you're free to go for the night. Let you guys out a little bit earlier to get some good night's sleep for tomorrow's class.
I just had a question on what day the oral test starts. Is that like Friday or Saturday on that last week?
Let's see. So week 7, you're in person, right? Okay, so week 7, the first week in person, you're just gonna be basically a snapshot of it. It's gonna be the intros again, final test, flight plan number 2, and then you're gonna be doing some reviews. So each day that you're up there, you're basically just doing a review each day. So FAR's review starts on Tuesday, and then it goes to flight plan 2. So far for that whole entire week. And then week 8, so on March 2nd, it looks like that Monday starts the mock practicals. It starts the mock practicals, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have like Monday, like, oh, Monday I'm for sure going to do my mock practical. You have to be done with your flight plans before you can actually like do it. So then let's just say, for example, let's just say week 8, you finish all your flight plans the weekend before, you go to week 8, that Monday, they start them. You're the first one that does it, or the second one that does it, whatever, you do it that day. They'll most likely have you testing. They'll probably have you testing like probably the next, the 4th, like that Wednesday start them. So, because I don't think they'll test on like that 3rd if they're doing the mock on Mondays, just because they have to give the examiners the notification of like, hey, so-and-so is ready to be tested, and then the examiners have to, decide the time and stuff like that for you guys. So I believe the exam, your practical, should start if you test on the 2nd, which that's that Monday. You should be starting your practical on that Wednesday. But again, you have to make sure before you do the mocks, you have to make sure your flight plans are completed. And I don't know if things change just because I'm not, I don't go to the in-person class, unfortunately. I kind of just do mostly of the Zoom stuff. So I think it's maybe flight plan 6 or 7 you have to have completed, and then you can opt in to do practice, like to do 8, 9, 10. But I believe they start doing the mock practicals like once you complete 6 or 7. It's one of those, but they'll go over it with you definitely in person, but also tomorrow Dalen is going to be, I think it's Dalen. Let me go back really quick. Yes, tomorrow Dalen is definitely going to be teaching you guys. He, if I'm not mistaken, is in person. But if he doesn't know, then on Friday, Jaden will definitely know more of like the whole, how many flight plans you have to have completed before they can start the mock practical. And the mock practical is going to be a lot more harder than the actual practical. But they tell you to write things down. And then at the very end of the mock practical, you know, it determines like if they feel comfortable enough signing you off, based on, you know, how the whole practical went with them. And if they feel like, okay, you're good to be signed off, but just review X, Y, and Z, they're going to give you that feedback as well as to what to review, to make sure that you're ready. So hopefully that answered that. And make sure that
Yeah.
you guys have your stay now, especially if you haven't booked your like Airbnb or your hotel or whatever the case. Make sure that you guys do that like ASAP. This way you know that you have a place to stay up there. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
This might be a little off topic, but I kind of heard some scuttlebutt about ForeFlight being sold and or maybe going bankrupt or disappearing. Just wondering if anybody has any knowledge about it.
I hope they're not going bankrupt. I use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I mean,
Did
I
read-
saw that they did a bunch of layoffs, but I haven't read really into it. So does anybody know more information about that?
I read a little bit about Boeing shedding some of their digital businesses, which ForeFlight would be one of. I seriously hope not, because that's what I use every day for dispatching right now. So that would suck.
Yeah, my ForeFlight subscription just ended. So they're like, you know, renew it. I'm just like, $200 something. I'm like, maybe. But I hope not. I hope that stays. I mean, all the pilots, they use it, especially during flight training even. We use that at Spirit sometimes too, because we had our own system of like how to look up like the routes and everything like that. But we use ForeFlight at Spirit, if I'm not mistaken, by just like not stealing routes, but seeing what gets approved, what other airlines are doing. We use FlightAware as well to kind of like look up to see like, oh, the weather's kind of funky. Like, how are other people filing their flights right now? So we use that actually, because you can pull up like the departure and the destination, and you can actually see like who planned what, like not the names of them, but you can see like Delta Airlines is, you know, their dispatchers filed X, Y, and Z. So we use that for like route planning too. But not like solely operating on that. It was just more of like a, hey, this is what I'm kind of thinking based on the weather, what's other people filing. So any questions about like in person maybe, or anything else? How you guys feel? Ready for it? Nervous? Excited? You guys are going to be dispatchers soon. All right. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, I mean, that's all I had. I'll give you back some time to go to sleep early. And then I'll post some resources on the classroom of what we went over the last 2 days. I'll also just keep an eye out, because once Dalen's like gets done with things he's going like the topics tomorrow and the following day, I'll make sure just to post like just additional resources that he may have not talked about, to kind of put things in very, very simple terminology of the navigations and like the different types and everything like that, because I think it will be helpful to kind of break it down. I mean, he does a good job at that, but you know, it doesn't hurt to have extra resources, I guess, to learn. So otherwise, you guys are good to go then. I'll hang on for a little bit.
Thanks, Jen. Have a good night.
You too. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Do you guys have any questions for me?